Welcome back to Studio King Street for the Stirling Business Podcast, and I'm delighted to have a guest today from the Stirling Enterprise Park and the Business Gateway, Alan Portius. Welcome.
Hi, Neil.
Thank you for coming along. So, Alan is a business support advisor for the Business Gateway down at Step, supporting lots of businesses, as they kind of, find themselves and start to scale. So thank you for coming along to have a conversation about the services that Step can offer. Can you explain to the listeners, just to start us off, what your role is within the organisation and what the capabilities are?
Okay. I suppose my role is all about engagement. I think, and that engagement can be entirely different depending how old the business is. We deal with such a wide range of clients that, if it's a pre-start business, it could be somebody that's just got a very, very basic idea. So that engagement involves being very encouraging, creating, I know it's an American phrase, but creating a bit of a can-do approach to this, encouraging people to investigate their business idea a little bit further. We've got people who kind of have done all their prep and they're just ready to go, and maybe we're looking at funding and things like that. Business planning, potentially encouraging that, putting a bit of foundation into the business. So it would involve that. As the business grows, I think it's our responsibility to offer a bit of support and maybe some signposting within that. Again, we will speak to the clients. Hopefully, we'll get a rapport with them, and we'll get to the nitty-gritty of what they're trying to do. But ultimately, a lot of that is going to be understanding who the support mechanisms are and support partners that we have, and signposting onwards to to potentially make that growth process a little bit more seamless. The obvious thing tends to be a relationship with Scottish Enterprise, for example.
Right, okay.
There's always been an intrinsic link between Scottish Enterprise and Business Gateway, and we would always be on the lookout for our clients, and indeed clients coming through the door, that satisfy that growth criteria enough that we would then act as the segue into their support. So again, we've got strong links with SE, so we would be making that introduction, explaining what they could potentially do to help out. So you'd be typically
making the introduction for the business to Scottish Enterprise as opposed to the other way around?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, we are a little bit more hands-on. We are in tune with the local economy. We speak to clients, we speak to these businesses probably a little bit more than others do, and we're uniquely positioned, I think, that we can see the businesses growing themselves, maybe even from a startup that we dealt with, and then we can say, listen, the time is right, that you should maybe move on and tap into a little bit more specialised support that SE can give that we can't.
Yeah, so what is the remit of Scottish Enterprise, and how do they, when you hand over the baton, what do they do with the business typically?
Well, they have swung a little bit between leaving the clients with us and dipping into the necessity that the client might have at a time, or what they would call account management, and they're sort of back towards that again, that ethos that they will have an advisor that would take on that client effectively. I say mentoring, because those clients are sort of experienced and probably don't need a mentor, but there will be a designated advisor there that will look at the full remit of what the clients are doing and try and tap into all the SE resource that's potentially there.
Okay.
A lot of it involves around innovation, to be honest. But they constantly they've just announced a lot of new funding, capital expenditure grants, and things like that. So yeah, but it is a bigger concern. It will probably be looking at a business that's got at least a minimum of 10 employees and looking to, really grow to the extent that their turnover is going to, exponentially grow. So again, we've just got to be on the lookout for that and say, I think you fit this bill, let's move it on a little step.
And with the Business Gateway, is there business size? Do you deal with small, medium, large, or is there no?
Literally across the board. We have back in the dim and distant past, we would have had business startup advisors, business growth advisors, but really we've got quite a specialised team that's been together for quite a while now, and we tend to do a little bit of everything. So I think that fosters a more global knowledge of what's out there, and also I think it means that we as advisors can stay, hopefully, with a client that maybe came to us with a little tiny nugget of an idea way at the start. We helped them into self-employment, maybe as a sole trader, and then as they grew, we were still there.
Right.
And I think that works a little bit better probably than having an advisor and then introducing them to somebody else who doesn't really know the individual or know the nature of the business.
So the way that you guys typically work, so you have an advisor allocated to a particular business, yourself being one of those. I guess Simon Orr would be another good example of that.
Yep.
And then you have some packaged services, I guess, that sit behind what you provide as an advisor. Could you give us some examples of some of the services that you can offer and support businesses with?
Well, I think it starts with that designated advisor side of things, because as I say, I think that's important, and we would potentially, that advisor would act as the hub for potentially every query that the client is going to have. We would either
just classic account management at the same time.
Yeah. We would start with ideally a face-to-face meeting, because I think it always works a little bit better. But if people are, haven't got the time or whatever, we'll do a Teams meeting or we'll do a phone call or what have you. From there, I suppose it's my job to identify the business gateway scope of service. There's a lot. Everything that we offer is free. So we've got, there's workshops and webinars. You can go into the Business Gateway website and sign up for a free webinar on a chosen subject. That's kind of useful. We've got a nice little program called Meet the Expert, and Meet the Expert has us. I think we've probably developed a merry band of local professionals over the last 5 to 6 years or so, and what they do is they give a little bit of time back to to our clients. They get a free half-hour chat on the subject that's important to them. So it could be an accountant, solicitor, HR, IT, sales and marketing, branding, commercial property, that sort of stuff.
So do these experts, as you call them, do they typically provide partner services? So if a client wanted to take advantage of, I don't know, some legal advice and they're getting some expert advice from that particular party, are they on a partner?
We have a framework effectively, and they're all very trustworthy. And that we've asked those clients, those consultants, to tender to be on that list, and we make sure they've either sat down and had an interview with us. They've provided bios and testimonials and stuff. And to be honest, most of them now we've been working with for a number of years, and we know the quality of the work that they do. So we're more than happy to let them loose on our clients. And as I say, for half an hour, it's probably the lowest level of interaction that's needed, and it can solve quite a lot of small problems there and then, and maybe a little bit of expertise that maybe the advisors don't have. So we've got that. We tap into UK Share Prosperity Fund for our Expert Help Programme, which is basically putting a consultant into a business that's got a little bit of growth potential, granted, but putting a consultant in to do make good a project that we've identified needs to be done. Historically, it could have been website design, it could have been creating a promotional video, it could have been general troubleshooting, looking at the accounts, maybe doing a more robust business plan for a funding application, a sales and marketing plan, HR. A lot of businesses that are growing have got the issue of employment. Sometimes the idea of employment contracts, employee handbooks, it's it can be a bit of a head scratcher for people. So our internal team at STEP tend to pick up and do the funded side of that for free for the clients. Right. And indeed, if it's a slightly bigger project, maybe that fund can support a slightly bigger bill at the end of the day. So you might not be getting a free service, but you might be getting a heavily subsidised one
subsidised,
at the end of the day. So we find that's pretty useful. What else? We've got a nice networking group that's growing by the month. Usually the last week of the month we'll get a fairly informal breakfast meeting organised that lets people meet new people at the end of the day. So that's pretty useful. And
some of the services around things like HR, marketing support, IT, technology, digital. Do you resource some of that in-house as well within the business? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think Step's quite uniquely placed. That we have a very strong HR team that's growing. We have a very strong property team. So if there are issues, in actual fact, they operate on a commercial basis as well. Right. So sometimes there's a natural transition into Step's HR support because they've got nice little flexible packages for businesses that are growing. We always try and fund it to start with, but once that finishes...
But they provide package services over and above.
100%,
that kind of introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. And even something as small as once you're registered with us, you get a weekly newsletter that tells you all about the funding that's available, all about the local business events that are on the go. We're conscious about where we are in the scheme of things in the Scottish economy. So obviously we've got a lot of hospitality and tourism and whatever. So we will run a tourism month with a lot of workshops that are particularly tailored to that. And we've just gone through business month. I think
I've seen one recently before Business Month. I've seen the I think it might have been tourism focused. So you have like themes that you effectively follow from time to time, do you?
Absolutely, and aside from it just being an informative session, I think it's quite valuable to get a whole load of businesses that are all part of the same sector, all in the room at the same time. Yeah, because there's got to be complementary. There's got to be complementary support there, and that's really what we're for.
And we're all about co-opetition.
Yeah. We're all about encouraging Stirling businesses to do business with Stirling businesses. Yeah, that's what we're here to do. We're not here to support. That sounds terrible. We're not here to support Falkirk and Alloa and Perth and whatever. We're here for Stirling.
Yeah. It's great. It's very it resonates a lot because that's exactly how we operate here in King Street. We don't have a bar, we don't have a restaurant or a hotel. We use all the local catering and hospitality businesses around us. So they grow. If we grow, we're successful. They're successful, and vice versa. So it's really good. So are there any prerequisites for businesses to engage with Business Gateway?
Again, absolutely not. No. The advisor that is allocated will sit down and have an informal chat, and we'll just hopefully our skill is understanding where those businesses are, whether they're right at the very start of the process or old hands, and we can understand, well, we're not here to teach people how to suck eggs in that circumstance. We're here to push people on and signpost, as I say, and get them the best support. We were talking earlier before we started, maybe even just saving a bit of time, so that there's not, people are busy, and to avoid fumbling around for a couple of weeks when you could speak to somebody who could say, oh, you really want to speak to them, and they will solve that problem, then that's us doing our job, I think.
So as a function, how do you typically interact or interrelate with other business support functions in the Stirling area or Forth Valley area? So I'm thinking the likes of Go Forth Bid, Forth Valley Chambers. Do you have a relationship and a partnership, and how does that work?
I think we try and foster a relationship with anybody in our network, and you've mentioned 2 or 3, but I wrote a little list before I came in, and it was quickly hit 20, 30 types of people that we need to know about. And if somebody comes in and they need funding, then there are a number of options to do that. If they are talking about forming a social enterprise, then there are some go-to people relating to that, both in terms of support and construction and funding for that. So there's a lot. We typically as well have, in our weekly meetings, we are always trying to encourage all the local support mechanisms and partners to come in and speak to us, so that there is that. Our advisors are always, well versed on what the local delivery is and what changes have been made and what people are now doing. I think we keep abreast of most things, because, as I say, we can't. we can't do everything or know everything, you know, off the top of our heads. So, but we are very aware that there are specialisms there.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's knowing that and quickly saying, you don't really want to be speaking to me, but I'll make the introduction to this. Whether it's, you know, and there are so many, you know, we deal with the supplier development programme if you're looking to tender. There's the King's Trust if you're a younger person looking to start in business. We've got CodeBase up there, you know, and Techscaler with all the tech related businesses. So, you know, again, this is specialised stuff.
Would Scottish Edge fall into any of that category? Do you have any interaction with you know, I think there's young entrepreneurs looking to expand and grow in their early days.
Yeah, I think our advisors have dealt with that in the past, and I was looking at an Edge application a few weeks ago, and whereas it's mostly done and it's in a sector that the person that's written it knows far more about it than me. Okay. You know, I'm looking at that thinking, is that a coherent application? And
right. So you're looking at it from from a I guess a business case perspective. Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
You know, would that resonate if it came across my desk and I was making the decision on applications?
Exactly. So sometimes we can just be that buffer as well between, you know, making an application somewhere and again, you know, it's maybe not everybody's bag to do that all the time. So you know, just to have a second set of eyes on that's used to that. And I mean, you've talked about the bid. There's, you know, my colleague Simon sits on that and goes to all those meetings and understands and knows what's involved in that. Therefore, he can bring issues that arise from that to us, and likewise when they're talking about, you know, what's happening at the coalface, so to speak, of Stirling-based businesses, we can have that knowledge quite uniquely to spread.
I know that a lot of the services within Business Gateway are funded by Stirling Council. Do you have a lot of interaction with the council on a day-to-day basis? If so, which departments do you
100%. Economic development team are quite instrumental in what we are doing, and Alan Connery, he
sat in that chair yesterday.
Yeah, relatively new to the post, has been excellent at making those links, and we always had a link, but it seems to be growing as well. So which is always encouraging, because they are the prime movers at the end of the day in everything that's happening economically in Stirling. So it behooves us to to be in line with them and know where they're coming from, and again, hopefully back to that whole idea of us being at the coalface. You know, that we can maybe, you know, impart some information to them that they might otherwise not have been privy to, so that they can do bigger policy decisions on that.
From what you know of other business gateways or business services in other regions across Scotland, do you think they're vastly different, or do you do anything that you think is a bit unique within Stirling?
No, I think we are quite unique in that. Well, I suppose all the business gateway teams would say that, but it can be a little bit different. It's the business gateway programme is supposed to be fairly unified, but, you know, again, we were talking earlier about sometimes the way it all works. You know, we run the Business Gateway programme in Stirling. If you go to Falkirk, it's Falkirk Council that run that programme. If you go to Alloa, it's a company called Cetrus that do it. And everybody's got a slightly different view. Yes, we can tap into a lot of the good stuff that Business Gateway offers. But we will always, I think, because we are in tune with the needs of our clients, then you can go and do workshops online, but we will also organise face-to-face workshops that we know are the ones that put bums in seats effectively. You know, we like doing Canva workshops and Wix build your website workshops and things which might not turn up on the national curriculum as often, but we know that, and as I say, a lot of the stuff will potentially be if we're getting speakers in, it may well be tailored to the tourism week, because we know we have the national park area that's wide and vast, and you know, we have to be supporting, you know, the hospitality and the tourism related industries on that. So which might not be a priority to Falkirk, which is a little bit more industrial. Same with maybe Lanarkshire, which is the same thing. So again,
very good. So what would you say the objectives of Business Gateway in Stirling are for the next 12 months then? obviously you'll be looking to evolve on your services and your propositions. What would you say the priorities are for the next year or so?
I think it's just maintaining the engagement, to be honest, to make sure that people understand that we're here and we're available and we are approachable, and it doesn't matter what stage you're at. I think we are going to give the person that has an inkling of an idea, maybe is just disgruntled at their job and is thinking, I just always wanted to open up a motor parts business, or I wanted to be a dog walker or something, and I want to follow my dreams, and we are happy as happy to speak to somebody like that and set them on their way and get them thinking about the potential and what they're trying to do, as we are with the hardened business person that's firefighting and are either doing very well or, God forbid, doing not so well. We're just trying to make sure that they know that we're here and we'll listen to them, and there could be a substantial resolution to some of their problems, or indeed just somebody to maybe say, yes, you could run a business. Sometimes it's as simple as that, and and instilling, as I said at the start, that can-do attitude in people and being encouraging rather than somebody saying, well, why are you thinking about doing that? That's a terrible idea. We would never do that.
No,
it's up to the individuals involved, I think, to research and to business plan and to come to their own conclusions that there is a business idea in here.
Yeah, so you're providing guidance, frameworks and direction of how they can do that.
Yeah, we'll be supportive, but it will be objective support at the end of the day. We're not going to... We will put a mirror up maybe to some ideas. But as somebody was asking me fairly recently, it's always the last question and that I get at the end of a meeting, especially with a pre-start thing. Saying, so do you think is a good idea?
Yeah.
and I've been doing this quite a long time now, and I don't think it's really my job to say it's a good idea or a bad idea. I've fallen down that route before by thinking, that sounds terrible. Nobody wants hats for dogs, or something. And they go off and they business plan it and they go at it with resolve, and they come back and you say, how's your hats for dogs business going? And it's going like a fair. It's fantastic. Yeah. It's really, really good. And I go, well, there you are now. I would never have thought that, but there you are. And the other side of the coin can be you'll hear the greatest, most innovative idea and be bowled over and think, I wish I'd thought of that. That's a gold mine waiting to happen. And yet they come back months later and nothing quite has happened with it, or they've moved on to another brilliant idea but left the last one.
Shiny object.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the answer is maybe it just comes down to the people and their resolution towards doing it. But we can maybe put some things in place and some foundation. We can develop a business plan with them. We can give them that objective view rather than maybe they speak to their friends and their family who can sometimes give slightly strange views. They're either ridiculously supportive of ideas that are not the best, or not very supportive of good ideas. Why do you want to do that? Go and get a real job. So I think it's our remit to objectively be supportive and take them through that process. Yeah. And it doesn't cost anything to plan something and research it at the end of the day, other than a bit of time and commitment.
Okay, Alan, I think we're coming to the end of our time here, but it's been very enlightening. Thank you for sharing the services of Business Gateway and Stirling, and fantastic. We'll definitely have you along again on another occasion. But thank you very much for your time, and
no problem.
Good luck.
And if anybody wants to, we're very local. We're down at the John Player building, just down by Lidl and Majestic Wines.
Okay.
More people seem to know that it's near Majestic Wines and Lidl, I think. But
how can they reach out to you online?
So we have if it's a start-up situation, we have the Business Gateway has a planning to start system, and you fill in all your details, and it siphons you off to an advisor advisor, depending on your geographical location, depending when where you're going to start up potentially. That system also filters through our CRM system and it appears and gets allocated to an advisor as well. You can phone our reception. If you go into STEP's website, the reception number's there as well, and that'll be passed through. There's lots of ways of contacting, or indeed, as I say, they do it the old-fashioned way. Just knock on the door and come in and ask to speak to somebody. There will always be an advisor in the John Player building at some point to speak to you.
That's great. Well, thank you, Alan. And
thank you.
Speak to you again soon. Thank you. So, end of another fantastic episode. Alan Portius from STEP Business Gateway. Thank you for Alan's insights today. We'll see you again in the next week or two with some additional content from another guest.